Welcome back to Rewind of the Living Dead. I'm Mr. Martin.
And Mr. Martin, can I be excused? I'm Patrick
no,
Guerra.
no, you may not. You have to sit in your damn chair until the end of class. Yes, Patrick. Tonight we are reviewing. I keep saying these same kind of things, but I have to because it is true. Another of the buzziest horror films of 2025, and this is legit because Barbarian was a surprise smash hit, and now we are back with Zach Kreger's sophomore effort, Weapons.
Of course, Damon. Weapons released in August of 2025, starring, hold your hats here, Carrie Christopher as Alex, Austin Abrams as James, Toby Huss as Captain Ed, Benedict Wong as Marcus, Amy Madigan as Gladys, Justin Long as, I think, Gary, Alden Eldritch as Paul, Josh Brolin as Archer, and yes, Damon Julia Garner stars as Justine. Written and directed, as you mentioned, by one of the buzzier boys out there in all of film horror land, Zach Kreger, with a budget, Damon, here we go, of $38 million, because we're going big now. This is Weapons.
And this was I mentioned in the intro, and if you don't hear the intro, that's totally fine. But I mentioned in the intro that this was such a hot property that everyone was bidding on it. Everybody wanted this after 20th Century released Barbarian, and it kind of came out of nowhere and ended up being a really surprise hit. I think they made that on like a $4 million budget, and it made like $45 million, somewhere around that number, which is 10 times the budget, which is an automatic win. And I don't know the full details of the story, but it is true that like there was so much bidding going on for this that Jordan Peele actually let go of a couple of executives at his company, Monkey Paw Productions, when they didn't secure the rights to this, because I think one of the guys who worked for him was either Zach Kreger's manager or partner or friend. And so like he had the inside track, and when they didn't get the rights, he's like, well, you're done. Now I don't know, this might be just Hollywood legend, but I do know for a fact he did, end up parting ways with a couple of executives. But that's the true Hollywood story, if you will. The rumored Hollywood story was he was so upset he didn't get the rights to Weapons, he parted ways with a couple of people from his company. So this was legitimately one of the hottest properties in Hollywood.
And there's no secret as to why, Damon. It'd be sort of like saying like Terrifier's going out to bid. Who wouldn't want their hands on Terrifier? Of course, every company would because it makes a ton of money. Barbarian made a ton of money, and for very little cost. That's stuff that you want. You want the guy who did that next, and there's good reason, by the way, too. Now you can go back and listen to us talk about Barbarian. Damon and I had very different experiences with that movie. Damon loved it. I called it one of the worst movies I saw that entire year. I genuinely do not like Barbarian, and I stick to that to this day. But there's something I could not deny, Damon. What Zach Kreger put on screen made very clear that he was a very interesting director. I just had a problem with the way he was telling the story. And there are holes all over that story. I mean, you might as well call it Swiss cheese over Barbarian. It's a movie full of holes, but I digress, Damon. It was wildly successful. People love it. There's a strong contingent of us who don't like Barbarian, but most people do. Most people loved it. So it made total sense that his next thing, which was the last one was a smash hit, Damon, and they only care what you did last time. Weapons, that everybody wanted it because they're like, we think we have another win on our hands. Now, Damon and I are recording this the night we saw the movie. My theater at 2:17 in the afternoon on a Thursday was packed. It was a packed theater on a Thursday in the middle of the day. Normally, I'm alone on it's me and Schwink on a Thursday in the middle of the day. The crowd was wall to wall, everybody there to see Weapons. I have a strong feeling, Damon, we have another hit on our hands.
So I saw the late show. I saw the 10:30 show, which by the time the actual movie started, it was 11 o'clock because AMC has to show you 30 minutes of commercials before you see a movie now. And our theater was absolutely jam packed at Thursday night going into 1 a.m. in the morning, which people going opening night on Thursday night's not unusual, but generally speaking, the later shows aren't as crowded because most people have to work or have school on Friday. But this place was absolutely jam packed, so I was kind of surprised. I honestly didn't expect it. I bought my tickets right when they went on sale, so I didn't know. And then we show up, and the place is just insanely crowded. So there's also a weird thing here that I want to mention, and I don't believe in taboo. I don't believe in I don't believe in any of that stuff, but there does seem to be a real issue with art and a second effort. And what I mean by that is when you are wildly successful with your first thing, and then you have to do a follow up to that thing, filmmaking, music, whatever it is, there is a lot of pressure to deliver. And I remember when I was a kid when Pearl Jam came out and 10 was insanely huge. Everybody, like Jeremy was one of the biggest songs on the planet. Even Flow was a massive song. Like Alive was that was a huge, huge album. And then I remember when Versus came out, and while it was big, I do remember there was a lot of rebuttal to that album. People were like, this doesn't sound like 10. There's like other weird shit on here. Now I think Versus is probably my favorite Pearl Jam record. I'm a big Pearl Jam fan.
Good
But
record.
another band that I loved at that time, I was a big fan of a lesser known Seattle band called Candlebox. Their first album came out, Far Behind. Everyone knows that song. That was their big hit. But like that first album was incredible. Their second album came out. Now this is where I differ. That album was awful. I did not like that album at all. It was almost like they went out of their way to not make it like the first record. It was just so bad. They did rebound, by the way. Their third record was actually really good. But I think it's that same way with movies because when you come out of the gate and you're not like 3 or 4 films deep and then you have a hit, because that happens a lot. Like you'll have 3 or 4 films, then you finally get one that makes it. But lately, we have seen a lot of freshman filmmakers become the it thing for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, a half hour, an hour, 2 hours, whatever the time period is of a summer, over a fall, over a winter. I think it happened very much with the Philippou brothers with Talk to Me. That became one of the buzziest films a couple of years ago, and everyone wanted to they were going to do the Street Fighter movie, and then they ended up doing Bring Her Back. And the vast majority of people loved Bring Her Back, and that you could say was a win. Didn't work for me. I'm probably one of the few outliers that didn't like that movie, but the vast majority of people did. But it's hard. It is hard to have that kind of attention and hype built around you for your first movie and then trying to follow it up and deliver in a second movie. And I wish I had a longer list of examples of people I can think of that did that. But you know what I'm talking about, Patrick. I mean, it's a real thing where the pressure and the hype comes on. The second film just a lot of times fails to live up to expectation.
I would say that even the aforementioned Jordan Peele suffered this situation. Uh,
I would
Get
agree.
Out, which we just recently talked about, one of the perfect films. It's a fantastic movie, an Oscar-winning film. It's a very, very good movie, and it was so anticipated. It was like, what is his follow-up going to look like? And interestingly enough, he and Zach Krager have a very similar background. They both come from a comedy background. Zach Krager was on The Whitest Kids You Know, which was a popular show. And so it was very interesting to be like, oh, what's he going to bring to the table? Then he brings this kind of like, coming from left field hit with Barbarian, and they're like, well, we can't wait to see what he does next. He was sort of on a similar Jordan Peele trajectory. It's no wonder Jordan Peele kind of wanted to get a hold of him. He's like, this guy's got talent. Let me bring him under my wing and let's foster his second movie because maybe that's something that I kind of wish I had with Us. Because I think as much as I think he defends Us, and I think it is actually a very well done movie, I think there's a tepid response to Us because I think the ending is a little flat, weirdly. Like it's just sort of like, oh, I don't quite get where, like I get it, but also it didn't land particularly well for me. And so all
I'm with you,
eyes are
by
on
the way.
Zach.
I'm not a big Us guy either, by the way. Just to throw that out
Yeah,
there. I'm
I
not either.
kind of there's some interesting like parallels between Weapons and Us because both movies I think are kind of steeped in mystery. You're kind of trying to like most of the movie you're trying to figure out what's going on. And then as you hit the third act, it like hits the ground running. And this is all pre-spoiler, so I'm not going to tell you what happened. I'm just saying that they both have very similar trajectories as to how they unfold. I will say that Weapons I like the ending more. Um And just to personalize it, Damon, because that's all I can do, because that's my job here on this podcast. Yes, I famously did not like Barbarian because I think Zach Kreger did not have a hold of the story. Um, and by the way, that's not, I say think, he completely admitted that he didn't have a grasp of the story, so he just pivoted from the story. If you've seen Barbarian, you know that. You know that the story basically takes a right turn at Act Two because he didn't know how to finish Act One. Those are his words, not mine. And it really, to me, reflected. I'm happy to say, Damon, Weapons doesn't suffer that problem. I That does not mean I think it's a great movie. I just think it's a vast, vast improvement from Barbarian. For all the issues I had with Barbarian, I feel like those issues are gone. Those issues don't seem to be there. This is a cohesive, mysterious, and intriguing story. And I will say this, he kept me on the hook the entire time. The way he kind of moves through the story, I was like, okay, so what is this all about? What is that all about? A lot of question marks in my notes. Okay, so where's that going? So where's that going? So where's that going? So where's that going? But you run the risk if I start asking those questions and the answers don't get fulfilled, you may end up with an issue. And that's, I can't get into it yet, Damon, because it's a really complicated answer. But I do think this is a better movie than Barbarian. I don't know if it's going to make my top 10 this year. I'll be really honest with you. I'll say that right now without saying anything about the film. But I can tell you this, it's light years ahead of Barbarian. The improvements are vast and clear, clear as day. And I'm going to give you one example that's not really a spoiler. I really had a problem with the way he drew the lead character in Barbarian. I thought she was unrealistically stupid. And when my wife watched it, she was like, without any prompting, she was like, "Why is this woman doing all this stuff? This makes no sense. A modern woman does not behave this way. There is no naive woman on the planet. A woman on the planet this naive." And then a few other women popped up and said it too. And even our buddy Chuck, he was like, "That movie's trash. I don't understand the hype." Like, there's people out there like that. This time around, that almost started happening again, Damon, and we'll get into that in spoilers. But he was, I swear somebody got a hold of him and said, "You can't make your characters that stupid." But he was like, "But watch me, I'll do it. But this time I'll make it make sense." I respect that. If you want to make a character make stupid decisions, lay the groundwork for why they make them. And I'm not even saying what character is in this movie in particular, but there's a character I was like really frustrated with at first, but as like things like bubbled to the surface, I was like, "Oh, well, that makes sense now." So this is a much more airtight movie. And as I actually did something that I don't normally do, Damon, is right before our podcast, I actually sat and watched the trailer because I have avoided every possible thing I could know about weapons because I didn't care. I was going to see it no matter what. So I didn't want any sort of like preamble at all. I said, "It's Zach Kreger. He's a good director. I want to see what he does next. I don't care how I felt about Barbarian." But I finally sat down and I watched the trailer right before we got on the podcast. And I got to tell you, I'd have been livid if I'd have seen that trailer. To me, it gives away way too much of the vibe of this movie. The vibe, not the story, but the vibe of this movie. And the things it shows in that, in my opinion, spoil big things in the movie, but you'd have to know like how the movie unfolds and all that stuff. I can see why people were hyped up for this movie. That's a great trailer. It's not a good trailer, Damon. It's a great trailer. It's super cool. It's got all the highlights and all the tantalizing little things that make you want to sit down for a movie like this. I think it's going to be a smash success. Damon, what say you before we get into spoilers? Because this is to me a very spoiler heavy type of movie. But what say you about your general impressions for this weapons?
So, unlike you, I loved Barbarian. And while I did bump up against some of the dumb decisions, the lead character, who I love, by the way, Georgina Campbell, she's a great actor,
Yeah.
but yeah, the character itself did make some rather dumb decisions. And we talked about that. You can go back and listen to the podcast. Even though I liked the movie, I still did not enjoy some of those. Like, there were some really dumb decisions. I also, as much as my writer brain kicks in these moments, and I'm just like, why would you do that? there's also the other side of my brain is that people do dumb stuff every day. So like
Yeah, it
I have
just
to
that was particularly bad, but
like
yes.
I try to reconcile it in my mind like even smart people do really stupid things from time to time. So I'm just like, you know what? Because the way the movie ultimately unfolded, I enjoyed it, so I had to kind of overlook some of the dumb decisions. But listen, if I could probably go back to some of my favorite horror movies of all time and say, "What a dumb decision!" Why did you do that? I mean,
The 80s were dumb.
the Devil's Rejects is my all-time favorite horror movie, and I would point about 3 or 4 things in there. Like, why would you do that? Why would you put yourself in that situation? Not going off on a tangent here. So Barbarian, like I love Barbarian. I think that was in my top 5 that year. I think I had it number 5 at the end of the year. Right now, spitballing without seeing Weapons more than once, and I just saw it a couple hours ago. I would say it's in my top 3 right now. Maybe top 5. I'd have to really dig down. I mean, we're talking Sinners. That's
Some Sinners
kind of
28 years later, somewhere in
28
there.
years later. It's kind of in that same. Yeah, like we're getting into tough territory where it's like, yeah, you're gonna have to really fight to get in claw to get into that top 3. But I
Yeah.
would say it's in that range. Top 5 for sure. Top 3 could potentially, and I have to really think about it because I've seen all those other movies multiple times now. Here's what I'll say about Weapons that was so surprising to me. So I'll disagree on the trailer thing, by the way.
Oh,
It
you
was
didn't
a
like
great
it?
trailer. No, it was a
Oh,
great trailer. But I don't think and the reason I say that it's much like Barbarian. When you watch the Barbarian trailer and you're like, this gave away way too much. And hypothetically it did. But then when you watch the movie, you're like, it really doesn't tell you what that movie's about. It makes you think you know what the movie's about, and then it kind of turns on its head. This movie gives you the premise. Now, I'll say I'll agree there's a vibe to this trailer, but the actual premise of this movie doesn't tell you what this movie actually is. It doesn't tell you where this movie's actually going. It gives you a very simple premise, and it's kind of funny if you've seen the trailer, and I won't go detail by detail of that trailer, if you've seen the trailer, that's kind of like the first 5 minutes of this movie. Because like when it started, I was like, how deep into the movie did this trailer go? It didn't go very deep at all. It was like 5 minutes into the movie, and that's it.
it shows at least 4 scenes from the end sequence of the movie. At
I
least
don't
4.
remember. You must have seen a different trailer than I saw then, because I never
I
saw
yeah,
it.
I saw the official Warner Brothers trailer. It's just under 2 minutes long.
Is it the new one?
I
Because
it's the it's the
the
new one
newer
from well,
one
it's the one from Warner Brothers is all I know.
the newer one may be different then because the original first trailer didn't give away very much. Now I'm not going to sit here and say I've seen it like yesterday, but
Sure, yeah.
when I do remember it, it didn't. And because I had the same feeling watching, I was like, you gave away too much. You told me too much of the premise. But when I sat down the movie and it was all, in my opinion, like within the first 5 minutes, I was like, eh. But also, you got to remember, you never saw the trailer until afterwards, so you can
Yeah.
pick apart what you know.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, no, that's 100% true. But I guess I was like, oh man, like I'm so glad that I experienced those moments without ever seeing them before because they really knocked me on my ass. Like I want to make clear there's a lot to praise about this movie, a lot, and a lot of it came in that final sequence. I think the third act sprint of this movie is something to behold, and it's really good. Like it's really good, and there's a lot of it in that trailer that I watched. So just like buyer beware. Like don't go watching the long trailer. Find the shortest one you can. Find a teaser. In fact, if I could suggest anything to people, it's like whenever you're looking up a trailer, use the word teaser instead of trailer and get the 30-second bit or the 1 minute bit. Those are better.
And I will say, and remember, we have to, just like we talk about with our audience when we say we like or dislike a movie, judge for yourselves. There's some people who love trailers. Like it makes them
Yes.
want to go see the movie. So
I was
I don't
watching a
want
bunch of our creators who are talking about the weapons, and people were complaining in their comments that they weren't spoiling the movie. And I
to.
was like, "Hey, that's your prerogative, pal. I didn't even know who was in the movie until 2 days ago when Damon Martin ruined it for me. I didn't even know who was starring in the movie until
I just
Damon told me.
that don't make it sound like I ruined the movie for you. I told you Julia Garner
Damon,
was in the
I
movie.
I'm just telling you, I didn't even know Julia Garner was in the movie. I didn't even know Josh Brolin was in the movie until you told me. That's how good I am at avoiding. And this, and by the way, one of the most anticipated horror films of the year. That's how good I am at avoiding this shit. And I've known about weapons for over a year now. So, you know what I mean? Like, I was just like, holy shit, Julia Garner's in this movie.
And that like that to me doesn't bother me whatsoever when I
Yeah,
know
no, no, it's not. It's not
that.
really a spoiler, but it was. I love being surprised. The surprise really counts for something. Is my point.
So this movie, and I think to a certain extent, like, here's a funny story. I walked in the movie theater. I walked in my theater, and the guy scanned my tickets, and he's like, "Are you going to see Weapons?" It was clearly the last show of the night at the theater. Going to see Weapons? Like, yeah. And he come. I have a Treyu shirt on, the band of Treyu. He's like, "Oh, I like your T-shirt." I was like,
Hmm.
"Oh, thanks, man." And he's like, "Going to see Weapons?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Did you like Barbarian?" I was like, "I love Barbarian." He's like, "You're gonna love this." And as soon as he said that to me, I was like, "Oh man, Patrick's gonna hate this movie because I know you hated Barbarian." But I sat down, and the way this movie unravels, and I'm gonna say one thing I'm gonna say a thing that's not a spoiler. I'm just gonna say, and you could say this is every movie to a certain extent. It kind of unravels in chapters, like in segments almost, like where it kind of unravels in
Yeah,
the movie.
deliberate segments,
Deliberate,
actually.
yeah. And this movie had such a pace and such a way of storytelling that I never truly knew where it was going next. And one thing I do want to compliment on this movie, which is to Zach Kreger's talent, this movie's freaking hilarious at moments. Like, it's downright funny. Like, laugh out loud. My theater was cracking up. And by the way, there are moments meant to make you laugh. It's not like
Yeah,
dumb things like you're watching, like, why are they doing this? It's so dumb, we got to laugh at it. But there's comedy. I didn't had any idea this was going to be a funny movie. And I know Zach Kreger comes from comedy. You mentioned the wisest kids was it the wisest kids in the room or the wisest kids in
the
America.
whitest kids you know. Yeah.
The wisest kids you know. Thank you. Um, so he comes from comedy, but and we said like there was funny moments in Barbarian, especially with Justin Long's character in that movie. I didn't expect this to be as funny as it was, and it was like there were literally laugh out loud moments in this movie that I was totally shocked by because the premise sounds so dour and serious that I was like, oh man, how are they going to make this like not just like a really like depressing movie? And it's not. It's a fun movie, and the twists and turns. I think you got to be careful with this kind of style of filmmaking because you can fall down the M. Night Shyamalan rabbit hole where your entire filmmaking career starts being built around surprises. I think
Hmm.
that ruined M. Night Shyamalan because I was a big, big fan of his. And I've liked more than I've disliked of his movies. Let me be clear about that.
Yeah,
But I think after Signs, it started getting that was the only point he had in his movies is he's got to twist it at the end and surprise you, and it just got more and more convoluted to try to surprise the audience, and that became his signature style. And I think it prevented him from just being a good filmmaker, you know, like.
I agree.
And I think you can look at a lot of different, like a lot of great filmmakers out there that are out there that do dabble in different genres and different styles. And yes, there are those like you could argue like Martin Scorsese, as great as a filmmaker as he is, he does seem to live and breathe in like the R-rated crime drama. Maybe not all gangster
Yeah.
movies, but crime drama is where he really thrives. He's made Last Temptation of Christ and some other movies that I'm not really that big of a fan of, but his wheelhouse, Goodfellas, Casino, The Departed, you know, he has a style. And I think that Zach Kreger's got to be careful because as
Hmm.
much as I enjoyed Weapons, and I did like the twists and turns in this movie, there are twists and turns. That's not a spoiler. That's just telling you what this movie is.
Yeah.
I enjoyed them, but at the end of the movie, I was like, man, he's walking a real fine line here because if he does this style a third time, it's going to go too far down one road, and he's going to go the M. Night Shyamalan. Did you get that vibe too?
100%, Damon. And this is really going to have to parlay into our spoilers because
Sure.
it's because of the why of it all. He does need to be careful, and I'm very curious. I'd love to like sit with him. He probably doesn't like me very much if he knew one thought about how I feel about Barbarian. Um, I stand that he's still a great director. I think someone else needs to write his stuff, but I'm very curious why he structures his movies this way and if it was on purpose because it's like, hey, you're the Barbarian guy. You should do it like how you did it in Barbarian. This movie did not need that structure. When I tell you it really didn't need it, it really did not need it. It had some strong ideas, some strong themes, obviously strong visuals. Myself and Schwenk praising how great the movie looks and feels, the cinematic language, the cinematography. He's got that nailed. He does not need to structure his movies the way he structured Barbarian, which was in these basically like very blunt chapters that coincide, that all collide. He didn't need to do that here. He had something really strong, and I feel like he was hamstrung by being like, well, I got to do the trick. I'm like Shyamalan. I got to do the twist at the end. And not that this movie is like that. It's nothing like a Shyamalan movie. But Shyamalan and him have something in common. They're both incredibly, very, very skilled directors that seem to be creating a pattern here. Don't do it, Zach. Zachy boy, you're talented. Get a writer, okay? Get a writer, a real good one that you admire, and direct the shit out of his or her script. Like you will crush it.
or
You,
or just realize you don't have to follow a pattern for your movie. You could be.
but
I think he is. I think he is a talented writer. But after watching Barbarian and really liking it, and watching Weapons and really liking it, I'm just like, I don't need a third one. I don't need a third movie in this same style. So
yeah,
either
don't get
do what
stuck
you're
with
saying,
this.
either do what you're saying, or go in another direction. Because like I said, I don't want you to become M. Night Shyamalan.
He doesn't need to. He and even this movie, and this is my last little like cryptic thing, and then let's get into some spoilers. Even stylistically, at like the first half of this movie, I was like, cool trick here, cool trick here, cool trick here. It started to become repetitive. The tricks lost their strength as the movie went on. Because I was like, well, now you're just doing it over and over again. And it's not, now you're losing a little bit of the cinematic language that made the first half so interesting. Now it's just feeling repetitive in the ending. It doesn't have, I would say, thematic or emotional cohesion. It was just like, let me do the trick. The trick's cool, right? You like the trick, right? You like the twist? Let's do the twist. It's like, well, no, no, Shyamalan, you don't have to do the twist every time. Like you really don't. Like I'm buying what you're selling, but show me some new shit, right? And so, Damon, I don't know. What do you think? Is it spoiler time? Is there anything else we need to really like lay down before we get into spoilers here?
I want to mention one last thing, and I know for people who are out there get sick of me talking about it. I'm so sorry. I gotta apologize, but this is just the best example I could come up with in the moment. When we talk about chapter style storytelling, being careful about now, to me it did work for me in Weapons. It worked out well. It did get a little repetitive and it did get a little drawn out. I was almost like, okay, I could have used one less chapter.
Mm-hmm.
Because this movie's about 2 hours and 8 minutes long. I was like, I could have used like one less chapter in this
Oh, I
movie.
have thoughts. I have big thoughts on that.
And I know you're not. Here's where I come in my apology. I'm mentioning it, but I'm going to say it just because it's the easiest example I can give you. Reservoir Dogs, Quentin Tarantino. It's a movie told in chapters, and it's told through character chapters. You get Mr. White, Mr. Blonde, Mr. Orange. Every chapter in Reservoir Dogs advances the story. So when you meet Mr. White, you find out who he is, you find out the aftermath of the bank robbery. Sorry, I'm spoiling a movie that's like, what, at this point, 40 years old, 35 years old, whatever it is, 1991 or whenever it came out. And then you get to Mr. Blonde and you realize the relationship he had. And then you get through the next stage of the robbery and you realize what a psycho Mr. Blonde is. Then you get to Mr. Orange and you get the big reveal that he's an undercover cop. Once again, sorry I'm spoiling a movie that's like 35 years old. You get to that, and that advances a story. So you are getting little bits and pieces of similar-ish story, but every chapter advances the story. I think my biggest criticism of Weapons, as much as I enjoyed it, a lot of the character chapters, a lot of the chapters, not character chapters, just chapters in this
Yeah.
movie, felt like they didn't advance it enough. And that's where the problem comes in because while I loved it, I'm saying right now it's a top 5 film for me for the year. If I'm going to be nitpicky, That's my nitpick because, and I know you're not a big Tarantino guy, but you got to admit the way that Reservoir Dogs is structured, everything advances the story. There are
Oh
definitely
yeah.
moments in Weapons where I'm like, hold on now, we're just kind of rehash. And I understand the style of filmmaking he's doing, and we'll get about that in spoilers, but it did get a little repetitive. And that's where I say you got to be careful because this movie could have been done in an hour and 40 minutes, and I don't think it would have missed a step. I don't think it would have missed a
No.
beat.
No.
And
A
that's
big
my criticism. That's my biggest criticism. That's without any spoilers. I'm saying that's my biggest criticism is that the chapters, the way the story is told, gets a little repetitive and doesn't feel like you're pushing forward.
And I hope Zach takes this as a compliment when I say him and Quentin Tarantino have the exact same thing in common, in my opinion. Phenomenal directors. Give them the camera, tell them where to point it. They will put something on the screen that dazzles you visually. Let somebody else do the writing. I know that makes no sense for you with regards to Tarantino, but it's just that's how I feel. That's how I feel about Tarantino. I feel like his dialogue actually bogs down his movies and gets in the way of his great directing. Actually, that's how I feel about him. And I feel like Zach Kreger. I mean, we got to get to it. We got to get to the why of it all. But Zach Kreger is dangerously going down that path. You don't have to repeat that stuff because some of that shit, while it kept me on the edge of my seat, while it kept me leaning forward, when we got to the end, I realized that stuff was spinning its wheels. And that, whew, oh, Damon, that really set old Patrick off.
Well, I'll totally disagree on Tarantino. I think he's a narrative genius, but I'm
I
not
know
going to
you
get
love
into
his
that.
writing.
I'm
You
not
know what
going
I
to get.
really don't like about Tarantino? His dialogue. Let's put it that way. The writing is not necessarily like the actual stories are kind of okay. Some of it. His dialogue. Anyway, that's a digression, Damon. We need to
And
move on.
my favorite part of Tarantino's films are his dialogue. That's literally
Oh
my favorite
God,
thing
I
now.
literally sent you a meme about his dialogue
I
earlier.
I could quote you the entire I could quote you every single movie. I love it. Anyway, sorry,
Yeah,
we're not gonna get off that subject.
I know.
Yes, we got to get to spoilers, but before we get to spoilers, I want to talk about a little short film that's out in the world today, Patrick.
Mm,
It's called The Path. Have you
I've
heard of
heard of
it?
that.
Have you
I've
heard of
heard
this?
of that. I heard of that. I heard that I directed and wrote that movie. And you know what,
It's
Tarantino?
phenomenal.
No dialogue in my movie, Tarantino. No, listen. No, in all seriousness.
Now if I have one problem with The Path, no, I'm joking.
Yeah, no shit. No, no, listen. The Path is playing at the Cabin in the Woods Film Festival this upcoming August 21st through the 24th, I believe. That's is those are roughly those dates. And you can do me a big favor as a listener of this podcast. You can join the virtual film festival. You don't have to attend the Cabin in the Woods. You can go online and virtually attend and not just support the path. You can support a lot of other great independent shorts. There's going to be an independent feature from Terror Films also screening. Um, if you go they don't make it easy to get tickets, so I made it easier. Go to at Director Patrick on Instagram, go to my link tree, and you will see right at the top, Cabin on the Web. You click the link, and it'll send you straight to the tickets for the virtual festival. Then you will put in the discount code, The Path of Patrick, and get 25% off. Go to my link tree at Director Patrick, click Cabin on the Web, add The Path of Patrick to get 25% off your virtual ticket. You're supporting me, independent artists, and a woman-led, woman-founded film festival that is completely independent. It's not one of those big dogs out there that can do whatever they want. They need our support. They need our help. You want to support independent film? Here's your chance. You don't just support me, you support a lot of great people. I've seen a lot of those shorts. They're fantastic. And it would mean the world to me to get your support.
So yes, check it out. The Path is absolutely worth your time. I don't say this just because we host a podcast together. I say this genuinely. It's incredible. It's one of the best shorts I've seen in recent history. Check it
Thank
out.
you.
Support Patrick and support the show because like I said, without Patrick, we don't have a show. So support it. With that being said, Patrick, let's get into spoilers. So if you haven't, and I'm giving a hard warning here because Weapons is a movie that you do not want spoiled if you haven't seen it. So we are going to get into spoilers now. If you have not seen Weapons, either A, know the entire movie is going to get ruined right now, or B, pause, come back after you see the movie. So Patrick, let's get. Should we talk about the plot, just like the general plot of the
Yeah.
story? So, the general plot of the story is this, and this is where I said it kind of comes like with the trailer I saw in the beginning of the movie. Literally, it's the same thing. At 2:17 a.m. one morning, 17 kids from one teacher's classroom at a little Maybrook Elementary, they don't ever name the town it's in or like the actual state or anything, but this little town, 17 kids got up out of their beds at 2:17 in the morning and they ran out of their front doors and disappeared. And it's now, when the story picks up, it's weeks later. They've done an investigation. The police have looked. They've gone through all the ring cameras and street cameras, and they cannot find these kids. And the town is desperate for answers. And now the school is reopening for the first time in a month. And basically, everyone in town has turned against the teacher whose classroom where these kids disappeared from. Her name is Justine Gandy, played by the great Julia Garner. And so the entire town is kind of turned against her, even though police have asked questions. And there was one little boy named
Yes, this is
Alex
important.
left. One little boy named Alex who didn't disappear. They've questioned him. They questioned Mrs. Gandy. They questioned everybody. No one knows anything. They've done investigations from the cameras, from the everything they could find. These kids just disappeared, ran out into the darkness, and disappeared without a trace. And so our story is effectively told in character chapters, starting with Justine Gandy, her perspective at that rally, all the way through a couple of exciting incidents that where she's trying to find answers. She wants answers as much as anybody because here's a big spoiler: Justine Gandy is totally innocent. She had nothing to do with what happened to those kids, but because it was her classroom, everyone points the finger at her. So we get a chapter of her. Then we get a chapter of Josh Brolin's character. He's one of the fathers whose kid went missing, and he is devastated beyond belief that his son Matthew went missing. And so he's basically ruining his construction business. He's lost. He's sleeping in his kid's bed at night, and he is desperate to find out. And he's pointing the finger at Miss Gandy as well, but then he's willing to go a little deeper into the investigation of what happened. Then we meet a character named Paul. He's a cop. He's Miss Gandy's ex, and now he's moved on without her, and they're kind of flirting with each other again, and now we get a different story with Paul and his part of the investigation. Then we meet a junkie. A junkie. What's his name in the movie? I forget what's his
James.
name. James, thank you. James, played by Austin Abrams, who's a great actor, by the way. James, and he's a junkie, and we find him kind of following his steps, how he ties into like where these kids have been. And then we eventually get to Alex, the little boy. And
Oh,
that's where
but
the
there's
story.
but before we get to Alex, we also get to Marcus, who is the
Marcus, thank you.
principal.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah, who's the
Marcus.
principal, played by Benedict Wong, by the way, who's a phenomenal
Yes.
actor. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Like they got some really good actors in this movie. But we even
Yeah.
follow him in this movie. And then yes, Damon, we got continue. We get to Alex.
We get to Alex, and that's where we find out the real what has actually been going on in this entire town. And we come to find out. I know I skipped over Marcus. That's where we actually find out who's doing this, but just to get to Alex, because that's where it really happens. Alex lives at home with his parents, and they tell him that his Aunt Gladys is coming to stay with him. She's very sick. She's on the verge of dying, and she has nowhere else to go, and so they're going to invite her to stay in their home. And when Alex comes home from school one day, Gladys is there, and his parents are just catatonic, for lack of a better
Yeah.
word. And he's trying to figure out what's going on. And come to find out, and here's the big twist, just like there was a big twist in Barbarian. The big twist is Aunt Gladys is a witch, but she's
Mhm.
dying of cancer. They never say cancer, but you know it's cancer. And she's desperately trying everything in her playbook, for lack of a better word, to stave off the disease and save herself. And the way she thinks she can do that is by stealing the life energy from other people and healing herself. So she basically transforms his parents into zombies, but it doesn't heal her. And so she says, what's the best way to heal myself? By putting myself around a younger group of people. I'm going to steal their life energy. And so she basically forces Alex to bring her possessions of all 17 kids in his class, and she uses that with a bit of her witchcraft to kidnap them and bring them to the house so she can heal herself. That's the bones of the story. I'm not. There's so much more to it, yes, but that's the bones of the story.
100%. And that is basically how this story goes together. And the way it is told is through these character chapters, and they kind of intertwine. So you start with Justine, that's basically after the incident that it picks up with her, and then it gets to a point, which is, She discovers that there's Alex's house is incredibly suspicious. She wants to talk to him because that's part of her little investigation is like, okay, I clearly don't know what's going on, and the only other person who's experiencing this with me is this one of my students. What I really liked about what Zach Krager did with her is she does make a lot of bumblehead decisions. Like she should just really just fucking lay low and back the fuck off, but she can't, and she can't because basically she has a boundary issue. And I like it's just built into her. She has a problem with boundaries. And even the principal, like, kind of absconds her. Now, my wife's a teacher, you know these things. There are certain things you don't do. She at one point had a tryst with somebody she worked with. You absolutely don't do that when you're working with small children. It's just incredibly inappropriate. She's driven kids home. Very inappropriate because it's a situation where you and the student are alone and there's not a third party around to corroborate what's happening in that car. And she's also like hugging kids and stuff like that. And that happens more commonly, but it's highly discouraged. But you establish very clearly like she just doesn't have that thing in her brain about boundaries. And so you go, all right, it makes sense why she's doing these things. She's a little
And
bit
she
of a
cares, and she
she
cares.
no
She
no she
does care.
totally cares. She's a
Yeah.
great teacher, actually. Like that's what I like how they portrayed her. It's like I'm still a great teacher. I just I do. I make these stupid choices sometimes. And then it even kind of folds over with Paul because Paul's a cop in town and they used to be together. And when he comes to visit her to check up on her at the bar, because she's kind of drinking away her problems right now, she tries to push him to drink too. He's like, I'm sober. And she's like, so? Like she just has this problem. So I appreciated that this time around, Zach Kreger made our main character, Justine, not just stupid for the sake of making dumb choices in a horror movie. She's stupid because she has a boundary issue. And eventually, even her and Paul hook up that night, and they're not supposed to, because we find out in Paul's story that he's actually with someone and they're trying to have a baby. Like, so I really appreciated that about her chapter. Archer's chapter, that's Josh Brolin. Love this chapter. Great chapter. And this guy he's down and out. I get it, man. If one of my kids went missing, I don't know how I would deal with that. But what's interesting about his situation, he's going down the rabbit hole. He is the Always Sunny in Philadelphia meme with the fucking strings and the pictures and shit going. I think this is what's going on. He's studying what's happened with the kids because he wants to find his son. He's an analytical guy, and he's like, they're all running out in this direction, and he knows the grid of the neighborhood, and he starts to triangulate where they all disappeared to, but he can't quite figure it out. He's like, he's going around, he's trying to get a little bit of help from other parents. They really don't want to talk about it, but he's obsessed with the situation, and finally, he confronts Justine because he's again part of his paranoia is that Justine must have a fucking answer here. So he confronts her at a gas station, and then it slams right into her principal, bloody, wild-eyed, trying to literally choke the life out of her. He runs out from out of nowhere, tries to grab her and kill her. And all of a sudden Archer has to snap out of his state and be like, "Oh shit, let me help her because this bloody guy is trying to kill her. What the fuck's going on?" But he notices something, Damon. When Marcus, the principal, was running towards them, he was running in the same way his son ran. His little son Matthew, when he was running out the door with his hands kind of down by his sides, making like a little arrow shape as he ran, kind of like stiff-legged. And he's like, that guy's running like how my son was running and how that video of that other girl was running. Like, what the fuck? And so it lifts his spell from Justine because he realizes, when he confronts Justine, she's like, I want to figure this shit out as much as you do, fucker. Like, don't treat me like shit. Like, I'm fucking freaked out about this too. So they combine forces. And he's like showing her his theory. And he's like, I triangulate that they're around here somewhere. And she goes, I know where that is. Because I went to that fucking house. That's my student Alex's house. I wasn't supposed to talk to him, but I went over there and shit doesn't seem right. And so they go and descend on that. Now, Damon, the other stories. James, he's a junkie and he has a mix up with Paul the cop. And Marcus, the principal, has a run in with Gladys. This is where the story kind of starts to piss me off. Those stories, while I was intrigued, and they certainly had their moments of comedy, surprise, intrigue, mystery, thrills. I think this movie's actually more of a thriller than any of those other things, any of the other categories. It's kind of a thriller with some funny elements. I was on the hook for them. But when we got to Alex's story, to our student, and we learned that what Gladys was really up to, when we learned that story, and then it all culminates in Justine and Archer storming the house, confronting Gladys, being attacked by possessed. These are all these people are under the spell. Now Paul's under the spell. James is under the spell. The parents are under the spell. The kids are under the spell. And so they have to find a way to break loose of this. Alex does help them because he's been watching how Gladys makes the spell happen. She twists personal items around this little kind of rose thorn twig thing and snaps it, and that can snap people out of it or into it or whatever, or what have you. And so he wraps a little piece of Gladys's
Wig.
what was it?
Her wig.
Yeah,
Her wig.
Gladys's wig around it, snaps it, and gets the kids to attack her in this Damon fantastic sequence where I was like, "Oh, Zach Kreger, you've won me back, buddy! What a
It was
fucking
like
sequence!"
it was like watching piranha in a pool just go after a piece of meat.
Yeah, 17 8-year-olds charge after this woman, chase her through the neighborhood. Go ahead.
That is like my I don't like children. That is like my greatest nightmare being realized. Sorry, I had to throw that out there. Like a bunch of 8-year-olds running after me. Oh my god, that's terrible. That's way more terrifying than Michael Myers or Jason or anything. Like give me
Yeah.
Jason all day.
This fantastic sequence where they break out and just chase her, and she's running through the neighborhood and breaking through houses and stuff, and the kids are smashing through windows and sliding glass doors, and it's a phenomenal, Damon, phenomenal scene where I was like, wow, this is fucking rad. Then the kids catch her and they tear her to shreds. I mean, literally just tear her to shreds, and tearing her to shreds, killing her brain, breaks the spell, kinda. And this is important to understand, and I actually really like this part of it. It's that this part of the story is interesting to me. It kind of ends saying basically the kids are no longer under a spell, but they're not quite right anymore. And her and Alex's parents, we so badly wanted them back for that sweet kid Alex. He was bullied in school. He was just a good kid caught in a bad situation. But his parents are now in a loony bin, and he has to stay with another aunt. And these kids, they're not quite right. Most of them don't talk, and some are barely starting to talk again. That's a metaphor for trauma. It just is. Okay, yes, the word of the last decade of horror, trauma. But it's relevant. It's relevant to this story. And there was at least a little bit of a hint in this movie, and this movie is all over the place, that there was an allegory for like school shootings. Archer has a nightmare where he's chasing his son through the neighborhood and he sees an AR-15 in the sky. And I go, oh, is this going to be like a allegory for school shootings? And it ends up not being that. But I think that that's kind of it ultimately in its bones thematically, this movie is about the loss of children and how nothing is quite the same after a tragedy like that happens. And it makes sense. Then the movie abruptly ends. And I'm sitting there, Damon, and I look over at Schwink, and Schwink looks over at me, and I go, I was kind of bored ultimately. And he goes, yeah, me too. I go, great ending, but they took way too much time focusing on characters that were not Justine, Archer, Alex, and Gladys. Justine, Archer, and Alex should have been 90% of this movie. With by the way, with more Gladys. Gladys is I think she should have like he kind of peppers her in, but she's so mysterious, and then they just bang reveal her in Alex's story. If this movie would have been their story, I didn't need Marcus. Please tell me why we even followed James, other than for plot reasons. That's just movement of story. It has nothing to do with like the meat of the story, the character work, the emotionality. I didn't need Marcus. I didn't need James, and I barely needed Paul. I mean, now that I look at Paul's story, I could have ripped it entirely out, and it could just been a cop that she's begging to go over there. It could have been a scene. And I realized like the choice that was made ultimately ruined what could have been a fantastic full experience. But that all the weight of those of the Marcus chapter, of the Paul chapter, the James chapter that slowed this thing down. Because when we got to that end was strong, and it made me realize there was a great story there that they never explored.
I agree. I both agree and disagree. I agree that those story chapters were almost unnecessary, or at worst they should have been. At best, they should have been shortened.
A
The
lot.
only the only reason Marcus, even though I agree Marcus was probably the least impactful, that's where you actually meet Gladys. And when she walks into his office and she's giving excuses as to why she's there and not Alex's parents, because he's trying to check in on Alex. Miss Gandy raises suspicions with him and says, "There's some weird shit going on in that house. You need to do a welfare check." And so he calls the parents and ends up, Gladys comes in. And he's like, "I
Mm-hmm.
really need to talk to the parents. Like, I can't, you're not a guardian. You're not his mom or dad. I need to talk to his parents." And while she's there, like, she's this fucking weird looking lady. She's got a wig on. She's all pasted in really heavy makeup, and she's got really heavy lipstick. She's a weird looking lady. And there's something off about her. So you're right away, your cackle should be raised in that moment. So Marcus, at least in that realm, he makes sense. And weirdly, his segment is actually really short, because after that
It is short.
meeting, you go to his house and Gladys shows up and like starts saying weird shit, like she wants a drink of water, then she needs to drink from a bowl, and he's like, "Lady, you need to go." But his husband is like, "Hold on
Mm-hmm.
now, she's an old lady. She clearly needs our help. We're going to be kind to her." Doesn't every couple have one of those where one of them is like, "Throw that motherfucker out," and the other one's like,
Yeah.
"Come on now, be nice." That's
That's why I love my
100%.
wife. She'd be like, "We're not even answering the door." And I go, "Correct."
Yeah. Yes. But so in a weird way, Marcus is actually fits, because that's where you actually meet Gladys and you realize who she is and what she is. Well, you don't realize who she is, you realize what she is. She's a witch.
Yeah.
Paul and James's stories, though totally unnecessary, the only reason they kept me on the hook for the majority of the time, not the entire time. And those are the segments I said they could have just whittled down to 10 minutes, and this movie could have been done in an hour and 40 minutes and out the door. The only reason I enjoyed those is because those two segments were really funny.
They
Paul
were good.
gets Paul, basically sees James breaking into a place. He tracks him down as a cop would do. And by the way, I was wondering how the correlation of this movie to Magnolia was. That's where I figured it out, because he's very much playing the what's his name, John O'Reilly's character from
Oh, John C. Riley. Yeah.
John C. Riley. Thank you, John C. Riley, the kind of bumbling cop from Magnolia. He tracks down James, and he starts to arrest him. He says, "Now I'm going to put my hands in your pockets. Nothing's going to stick me, right? Nothing's going to stick." No, nothing's going to stick. He puts on his gloves. First thing he does, sticks his hand in the pocket, gets jabbed by a hypodermic needle. And he does it, and he just reaches around and punches James in the head. And James just goes flying, knocked out. And he realizes, "Oh shit, I got my camera on, recording all this." And so he jumps back in the car, and he sprays off with like hand sanitizer or whatever. He tries to wrap up, and he's like, "Oh shit, this is recorded everything. If this gets busted, they're going to see me abusing a suspect." So he goes outside and he tells James, "I'm going to let you go with a warning. Don't ever mention this. Don't ever talk about this. We're going to call it even. You stab me with a hypodermic needle, I punch you in the face. End of story." He lets James go. And he's whatever. And then we get to James's story, and we realize James is just a homeless junkie, and he's living off his friends and trying to steal money. He literally walks by cars and just pulls on the door trying to get money, and he tries to steal things to go to the pawn shop to sell it. And James's story was funny, but once again, just drawn out too long. And then eventually, the reason why James's story pays off is because he actually ends up at Alex's house trying to break in and steal shit. And he goes in there and he starts stealing shit. And then he finds the parents, and they're just like zombified. And he's like, "What in the fuck is going on around here?" And he gets spooked and scared, and he runs. And he goes down to the basement. And
Yeah,
that's where
he goes to the basement.
goes to the basement. He sees all the kids just lined up like Village of the Damned, all just like lined up staring at him. He's like, "What the fuck?" And so he runs out of there, gets out of the house, and runs and tries to go tell the cops, but then he spots Paul at the police station, and Paul's already told him, "Do not come here, do not come back," and so he runs away. And long story short, basically James ends up telling Paul, like, listen, I saw the kids. I know where the kids are at. And I want my $50,000 reward, but I know where the kids are at. And that's where Paul goes back. And then, of course, Gladys mystifies both of them because she's got witch's power. So she, zombifies James, zombifies Paul, and they end up just staying in the house and luring Archer and Justine into the house. And that's where the whole, sets up the whole sequence at the end of the movie. While those, that's the only segments where I was like, you could have whittled those down. 10 minutes.
Oh, you could have whittled them way down.
10 minutes total. 10 minutes total. Like, I'm talking like 5 minutes Paul, 5 minutes James, and get out the door. The only reason, I'm not making excuses. I really am not. I think the only reason why, and this is coming from my writer's brain, the only reason why I think Zach Cregger didn't do that is I think he was trying too hard to keep the mystery of, like, who is going to be the ultimate, who's going to save the day, who's going to be, is it going to be James, this fucking whacked out junkie, is he going to save the day? Because he almost does. He actually sees the kids, gets the fuck out of the house, and almost goes and tells the cops. If not for that earlier interaction with Paul, he would have made it to the police station. Now, how much they would have actually believed him, that's a whole other story, but he almost saves the day. So I'm fine with you injecting James. I'm fine with you injecting Paul. I just need a lot less of them.
Way less, and really more than anything, I need actually less of Paul. James, it's important to at least understand that, like, and again, that could have been not even maybe a 5 minute scene with James, which is basically just the town junkie looking for a place to hide during the rain. He goes in, he's like, oh shit, I can steal some stuff here. He starts to steal stuff in the house and discovers what's going on. Then he goes to the cops. That does serve a reason why to draw people in to the house. But on the flip side, but truth be told, when I think about it, Justine and Archer have already figured out to go to the house. It's just a point to get more bodies in there to hurt them. That's really only the only function of it. When you really, really break it down, when you boil it all down and distill it, Paul and James's story was really just to get two more people in that house that were going to attack Justine and Archer. That's really the only function they served, and they eat a lot of story up. Paul, I got to know that Paul's trying to have a baby with this woman. There's a point where that woman attacks him in the store. You're right. Those all were like, oh, how does that connect? How does that connect? How does that connect? It doesn't. It actually doesn't connect.
It connects the story to the characters. It connects to the characters, doesn't advance the story. That's where I was talking about with Reservoir Dogs. Like it connects. It connects, like, but Paul's wife or girlfriend or whatever comes in and attacks Justine, and you don't really figure out till later why, because Paul lied to her and said he wasn't with the woman anymore, and then he actually was lying because they're trying to have a baby. Yeah.
But you even figured that out in the liquor store because she said as much, and I was just like, we were just spinning our wheels on Paul super hard, like really hard. And by the way, I love Alden Ehrenreich. I think he's great. I think he's a fan. Like I don't want to take it like I'm sniping him for some reason. It's in the writing, Damon. It's in the story. Paul, I didn't need that Paul story, and it's long. It's a long portion of the movie, and I'm like, yo, we didn't need that at all, and that created a vacuum in my audience. That again, that packed audience that was super excited. I could feel the energy being sucked out of the room, and he brought us back in the third act, and he brought us back with that great crescendo of an ending. But I thought to myself, man. I feel cheated by those moments in the movie now. I don't feel like they don't feel satisfying. That's my point.
Well, and I'll say this. I agree with you on the Paul story. The one reason why James's story works, and to me feels necessary in the overall story, shortened. I'm agreeing.
Much more. 5 minutes max.
But when James goes in the basement and sees 17 kids just standing in the dark and they all kind of turn and look at him, it's fucking freaky as shit. It's really and at that point you still don't totally know what's going on. It's not until you get to Alex's story and you really meet Gladys, you realize what she's actually doing. that you really know why they're in the basement. So I like that scene for that moment. When he goes down in that basement and sees those kids, it's a fucking freaky moment. And it doesn't have the same impact if you get all the way through the story, get all the way through Gladys, and then it's Archer going down and he sees the kids. It's not the same
No,
impact because you don't know why they're there at that point. You just know, like, you're just looking for the kids. You don't even really figure out until Alex's story why they're down there. And so you still need James's story. You just need a lot less of it. And
a lot less of it. And that's what
the
I was saying.
only,
Is that
yeah, yeah,
it does help the
and,
story, but you don't need
yeah.
as much.
And the only thing that killed, the only thing that kept me going, and I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying the only thing that kept me going is those two segments were pretty damn funny, and like my theater was cracking up. Like when
Oh, we
James
were laughing.
stabs Paul in the face with a hypodermic needle when he accidentally he thinks someone's running after him in the woods and he's in his tent and he just jabs out and he actually stabs him in the face. There's some funny moments. Now, as I said, that's my two biggest criticisms of this movie. A, the chapters don't move the story along at a pace that should be moving them along. And B or C or A or B or however you want to say it. The second part is the unnecessary time we spend with a couple of ultimately inconsequential characters being Paul and James. Now, James still pays off 5 minutes. Paul,
5 minutes.
maybe less, like 3 minutes.
I promise you, like if we took that whole storyline with him
you can just do Paul and James together, and you don't even need the wife. You don't even need the police station.
It doesn't even matter that he's connected to Justine. That's what drove me nuts. I go, in the end, and she kills him unceremoniously. I mean, she shoots him in the head. That's it. She just learns right then and there, oh, I grabbed his service weapon and okay, now he's dead. Nothing about their story ultimately pays off. Like it really doesn't. And so I felt cheated in that moment. But there's something even more important than I'm cheated about here. And let's really get to this. Alex. When Alex's story finally unfolds, I was like, shit, man, this is good stuff. And they gave way more time to James than they gave to Alex because they were really balancing Alex and Gladys's story. If this movie was basically just, like I said, Justine and Archer on one end, Alex and Gladys on the other, and just a drop of James in the middle, just to tie it all together, you'd had a damn fine story because Alex's story is compelling. And really, like what Zach Kreger's trying to like run, like drive home to us, at the heart of it is a kid. And if he is, I don't know if he's trying to talk about school shootings or not. I don't know. I'd like to watch some interviews with him and find out. But at the heart of it, a kid suffers a tragedy. And when I'm watching Alex's story unfold, I go, shit, this is a good story. Where the hell was it this whole time? Damon, it's at the back end of the movie. And really it's more of a race to get Gladys. That's really like it's more of that when I'm like, we could have been following this kid for the whole movie as a B story of this movie, and it would have been so compelling and so hard. It might have cracked the top 5 because I really liked what was going on there. I felt cheated, Damon, and that's why this movie pisses me off. Normally a phenomenal ending makes up for what I find to be a lackluster movie. It's happened a lot. In this instance, I went like, wow, they squandered good stories for stories that did not ultimately pay off. To me, that's like a mortal sin, Damon.
And I totally disagree on the Alex part of it all because when you get to Alex's story and you actually figure out what's going on, if you do that earlier, it ruins the movie. Because
I'm not saying earlier. I just want to I want to clarify. I'm not saying like get to that story earlier. I'm saying follow Alex's life earlier.
But you do because they show him early in the movie when they're questioning the kids about the whole Disappearance. They show Miss Gandy being kind of obsessed with him and wanting to talk to him running away from her. That's where she goes to the house, and you see her peering through the papered up windows, like the windows are all covered.
That's her. That's her perspective. That's not Alex's perspective.
But I'm saying Alex is there, like we see, and so we are understanding from a very early part of this movie something is off about Alex. Like we don't know what because he's the one kid who was in the classroom who didn't disappear. We don't know why. We don't know to what point, but we know he's really paranoid. He doesn't want to talk to anybody. He wants to get back to his house as quickly as possible. I think if you peppered him in too much without, then a you're either going to give away too many clues about where this is going, or b it's going to get a little boring because we can't tell you what's actually happening with Alex. Because ultimately, what Alex does, the big reveals with Alex is him going to school and him basically going to the store to buy chicken soup to feed these zombified students and zombified parents. Any of that, like, yeah, you could show him going to the store, but what, I mean, that doesn't really do anything. It doesn't really show anything, doesn't really prove anything. I think just like peppering him in the other people's stories where you see him kind of lingering in the background and he's rushing back to his house and you don't know why. I think that just like raises the element of surprise. And then when you get to Alex's story, which is a heartbreaking story if you really think about it, this
It's
poor kid,
good.
man, like he loves his parents, and this old crone shows up and basically zombifies his parents and turns them into her personal, I don't know what you call slaves. I don't know what better word to use for it. And at one point, like he tries to turn against her and she snaps a twig, and his parents literally start stabbing themselves in the face with a
Oh
fork.
yeah,
And so
terrible.
she's got total mental control, total brutal mental control over poor little Alex. And he's like an 8-year old kid. And the wherewithal to see this kid advance and evolve just in the scenes we see him in this movie is pretty remarkable. I'm like, you know, kids are capable of some pretty amazing things, even though I don't like children. So yeah, like it worked for me. It worked for me, and I think that's what, like, when I say Paul and James's stories were too much, they were too much, but at least they were funny. I'm like, at least you gave me some comedy in there. And James's did pay off with that basement scene. But then when you get to Alex, that's where it all comes together. It's like the glue that kind of pulls everything back together in this movie. And I know you're saying it pissed you off, but for me personally, I like the way it unraveled because it wrapped all the other stories together and you totally finally understand what's going on with Alex. Because I picked up on it very early. Like something was going on with Alex. I just didn't know
Oh
what.
yeah, that's it's very obvious. But I would have rather been bored with Alex's story than have been bored with Paul and James's story.
I'm
Paul
not
and
dis- I'm
James's
not
story are fully inconsequential. Oh, like I'm talking to the emotional and
sure,
philosophical
sure.
weight of the movie because it was that's my point is like there was so much potential for those things. Like it's clearly there. And so I would have rather been bored with Alex's story because it would have had emotional and philosophical weight to the story. Whereas I got some laughs out of James and Paul, but like I got a little bit of laughs with Archer too, and a little bit of laughs honestly with Justine. Like everybody was peppering in laughs. Even Gladys was pretty fucking funny. Like if you really look at it, so the laughs were there, but I was just like, nah, man. And like and that's why it didn't piss me off until it was over because I could see the whole thing finally, and I was like, well, shit. That just means those guys wasted my time. Like they ultimately did. Because they wasted my philosophical and emotional time where I really could have been invested in Alex because I think this story was going there and it didn't go there enough.
And I think I completely disagree because I think Alex, that last like 25 minutes you spend with Alex or whatever it is the total payoff of this entire movie. And it does. I think if you spend any more time with him earlier in the movie, you're just giving away where it's going. I would have figured that out in 2 seconds. I knew something was off about Alex, but I didn't totally know, and you couldn't know really until you meet Gladys. You don't know
No,
something
I'd have
else is
kept
going
it
on.
like if to do like a rewrite of the Living Dead, I would have kept it at school. I wouldn't because they go all the other characters go to his home enough. Like you don't need his home life. I don't need to know about Gladys
And I
for the
think
rest
that's
of the
I think
movie.
but I think that's where you're talking about, like, it's not out, like you need more Alex's story. There is, and everybody else's story, it wraps around to Alex in some way, shape, or form. Going to that house, Miss Gandy trying desperately to talk to the one student who didn't
Not
disappear.
really with Paul's story though.
No, I,
You can't say Paul and
I'm
Alex's stories convene. They
and
really don't.
I mean, Paul goes to the house. He does end up at
He
Alex's house.
goes to
So
the house. That's about it.
yeah,
He's looking for the
but
kids.
well,
He doesn't have any.
that's why I said like Paul's story was the one that really didn't matter.
It's
Like his was
yeah,
the
it truly
his is the
doesn't.
one you can 100% cut that. I like I said, you could have just done Paul and Alex as one story, made it 7 minutes, 8 minutes, and you would have got the same effect. I'm agreeing with you there, but I disagree with you on the Alex point of it all because I really did. Real quick, I don't want to keep harping on this. Real quick before we get to categories, Do you want to talk about the actual ending? Like the actual ending? Like once the kids, like once, so you mentioned the kids rip Gladys apart and they're all kind of broken out of the spell, but they're not totally broken out of the spell. And my girlfriend, when we left, she asked me, she's like, okay, I get it. Like they were all under this witch's spell. And because at the very end of the movie, there's a little voiceover at the very beginning and the very end of the movie. And the little voiceover comes back and says, sadly, Alex's parents never woke up and now they're living basically at a home where somebody else feeds them. They're still catatonic. She's like, some of the kids have started to wake up and they're eating on their own. Because she says at the beginning of the movie, she said this happened 2 years ago. So 2 years later, the kids are just, some of the kids, not all the kids, some of the kids are just starting to wake up from the funk of the
Mm-hmm.
trauma and the spell they were under. And then Josh Brolin's character is under her spell too, but he wakes right up because when Gladys gets torn apart, Josh Brolin wakes up and he stops choking and trying to kill Gandy, Miss
Yeah.
Gandy. And my girlfriend's like, so why did he wake up and the other ones didn't? And the way I took it, and I want to see, this is why I brought up the ending, I want to see if you agree with me or maybe I'm wrong. I said the longer that she has minion over you, the more traumatized you are. So when this story starts, they're saying the kids have been missing for a month already.
Right.
And so the longer you're under their, and that was her, the parents were even under longer because she hypnotizes the parents first and then the
Right.
17 kids. So my theory is that the parents and the kids were under her control for so long. At this point, we're assuming like 40 days. I don't know what the actual
Mm-hmm.
number is, 45 days. Whereas Josh Brolin was under her control for like 10 minutes. And so he was able
Yeah.
to wake up. Did you take it the same way?
Yes, that's exactly how I took it. Yeah, it's
Okay.
it's clear, like, but again, like, even though that to me makes total sense, then it muddies the philosophical side of it. Whereas, like, the philosophical side is like, actually, shouldn't Archer have an immense amount of trauma because his son's been missing for over a month, and that's a real thing too. Like, and you think you could get into the weeds with like how Archer's like head is working because he is a troubled guy when we meet him anyway. But like, it seems like what solved it all was getting his son back. That's all that really mattered. That like kind of lifted everything off of him. And I'm like, well, would that be how it works in your universe, in the logic you've given me? That's all. That's why, like, I'm always case by case. That's why I don't judge barbarian. That's why I don't judge this against barbarians. I'm judging this against what he's putting in front of me. And logically and philosophically, he said, this trauma should be long lasting, and it should really affect these people that were under her spell, because this under her spell is really an allegory, a metaphor for something else. What that else is, I won't bother to try and figure out here. So it's muddy, is my opinion. Like, my opinion about Archer is a little more muddy than everybody else.
But I do, and I know you said the ending because of the way the story played out with Alex and then, of course, Paul and James. But you did like the actual ending, the kids waking up and just absolutely sprinting through the neighborhood going after Gladys and her being like, oh shit.
Love it.
And then,
Love it.
ripping Gladys apart. And I
Fantastic
actually,
sequence.
that whole sequence was amazing, and I actually loved because when Archer finds his son, who is an asshole, by the way, he's a bully. He's the one who's been bullying Alex at school for all this
Yeah.
time, which I realized, like, what a little shithead. Uh, when Archer finally gets to his son, he picks him up, and he's still catatonic, and he basically carries him home. He's ignoring the other kids, the dead body. He's just like, I found my kid, and I think that is the speaking to your point about the trauma of what Archer's going through. But then as he walks away, you just get the voiceover and saying, after all this time, sadly, Alex's parents are, they're still being fed by someone else, and Alex has gone to live with another aunt. I hear she's the nice one, and the other 17 kids, some of them are starting to wake up and eating on their own for the first time, and then that's it. And I fucking love the simplicity of that. You didn't need to see
Yeah.
them
No.
examining the kids. You didn't need to see Miss Gandy back in
No.
her classroom. I love the simplicity of, we defeated the witch, but these people are still incredibly fucked up, and they may never come out of this. They may never be the same again. And that's just it. That's just the end of the movie. And I love the simplicity of that.
And that's a perfect, like, philosophical ending. is the idea. It's like, no, things don't just magically go back to normal. That's what drives me nuts about those Jurassic World movies. It's like, oh, okay, cool. We like all my negligence caused mass murder at this theme park. In the next one, I'm fine. In the next movie, I'm fine. It's like, no, that's not how this works. That's not. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that kind of abrupt ending. Where some people might not like that. I'm like, no, that's not my problem. My problem is the entire experience. It's actually got great bookends, and it's the beef in the middle, Damon. When you bite into that burger and the burger ain't cooked right, you're like, God damn it! Like this was gonna be so good, like, and that's how I felt about the movie. I'm like, oh, where this is going, where it's going, interesting, interesting. And then assessing it as a whole at the 30,000 foot view, I was disappointed.
And see, that's where I know I'm not bringing this up just to like bring. I'm not trying to make a point. I am making a point, but I'm not trying to just rehash old reviews. But that was my issue with Bring Her Back. Like Bring Her Back was like the beginning was cool, the ending was kind of cool, but everything in the middle just felt like a big muddy
Sure.
mess and just didn't work for me. And this movie, for whatever reason, and I think it does. I think I'm not even denying. Like I said, Paul and James didn't need a lot of that. Didn't need most of it, but the storytelling and the writing and the comedy was at least enough to keep me engaged. And maybe I'm alone in that, and that's fine. But it kept me engaged enough to where I didn't totally tune out during those segments. And then you get a really remarkable ending, really remarkable final segment. And the opening two segments with Archer and Gandy were both great. So I'm not denying what you're saying. It just affected you in a different way than it affected me.
It
Much
did.
like Bring
Yeah,
Her
it really
Back.
did.
Much like Bring Her Back. You loved the middle section of Bring Her Back. I hated it. So very much the same.
Yeah. So you know where I'm coming from, Damon.
I do. No, I'm actually I'm totally like I'm weirdly agreeing with you. I just had a different experience, much like you did with Bring Her Back. Like that's why I bring
Right.
that up because that was kind of my problem with that movie was the middle section just weird shit just didn't click for me, and it worked perfectly for you, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And this one's is the exact opposite. It didn't work for you, but it worked for me. So same kind of the same thing. Patrick, let's get into some categories. Let's kick things off as we do each and every week on the show, and let's talk about best performance. Now, I will say this entire movie got recasted because originally, as I mentioned, Pedro Pascal was going to play the Josh Brolin role. There was a different actor in the role that went to Julia Garner. Different role for, it was Brian Tyree Henry, who's a great actor, by the way, was going to play the part that ended up being Benedict Wong. The writers and actors strike happened. Pedro Pascal had to fuck off and make Fantastic Four, and everyone else got busy, and so they had to recast these parts. Now, let me be clear. I love Pedro Pascal. He's one of my favorite.
Hmm.
Who doesn't like Pedro Pascal? Come on, let's be honest about that.
He's great.
But I think they may have made a better movie with who they end up getting in this movie.
Who's to say? I'm not really 100% sure on that, Damon. But we got the movie we got, and we actually got a lot of great actors in this movie. I have no complaints with the skill level that was displayed here. By the way, Damon, our category is brought to you by patreon.com/rewind of the living dead, where you're going to get this show much earlier than everybody else. Everybody gets it on Tuesday, Wednesday. No, you're going to get it the night we record it, which in this case is Thursday night. So early releases, special podcasts. We just did our Superman podcast. If you want to listen to that, patreon.com/rewind of the living dead. Only $5 a month. What a deal, Damon. Best performance for me goes to Amy Madigan, who played Aunt Gladys. Damon, I liked everybody. Everybody's performances were great, even the ones that wasted all my time. But Aunt Gladys was so magnetic and so interesting. And she sort of looked like zombie Mona from Who's the Boss, if you remember that from the
She did,
1980s.
yeah, she did kind of look like that, yeah.
She was so weird and odd, and I love the way she moved through the scenes. I love the way that she kind of glamored people, and like when she's in the in Marcus's house and she needs the bowl, and the way she explains it, and the way she and the way she like very terribly manipulates poor little Alex. She's good in this movie, Damon. She's very interesting. It's a very layered character because it's like she's sinister, but she's kind of funny and she's manipulative, but she's also kind of goofy. Like I loved it. It was all over the place, and that might not work for some people, but I thought it was a great performance.
And did you know in that moment that that was Amy Madigan? Because I know Amy Madigan. I've seen her. I just literally 2 nights ago I watched Gone Baby Gone, which is one of my favorite movies. I love Gone Baby Gone, and she plays one of the lead characters in that movie. And I honestly, like, 2 days ago was watching Amy Madigan on screen, and tonight I was like, I had no idea that was her until the movie was over. Like, they had a lot of makeup on her. She was looked like a dying witch, for lack of a better word. And I didn't even recognize her. When I saw in the credits it was Amy Madigan, I was like, oh shit, I didn't even realize it was her.
I don't even know who she is. So yeah, I was totally
Have you
in the
have you not
dark.
have you not seen Gone Baby Gone?
I don't think so.
Okay, all right. Podcast over, folks. We're gonna end it right now. Patrick, come on.
Damon, you think I
Okay,
have time to see
listen.
every movie?
Yes, I do, because I see you doing reviews on TikTok all the time. You saw Naked Gun. You saw like 18 different movies this week.
Yes.
It's on. I think it's on Showtime or HBO right now. I know you have both of those.
I have
I
HBO. I don't have Showtime.
If you have 2 hours of time, anytime, go watch Gone Baby Gone. It is it's Ben Affleck's directorial debut. It's got Titus Welliver. It's got Casey Affleck. It's got Michelle Monaghan. It's got the guy who played Mr. Terrific, plays one of the
Oh,
guys
okay.
in that movie. It
Eddie.
is it is amazing. It's got Morgan Freeman in it. It
Okay.
is an awesome movie. And Amy
Huh.
Madigan plays one of the lead characters in that movie. So, dude, I'm like, it's a crime. It's a fucking great movie. I'm telling you right now. So sorry, I didn't mean to go on a divergent tangent here, but go watch Gone Baby Gone. It's a great movie. Anyways, that's how I knew Amy Madigan. But she's been in a bunch of stuff, but I just totally didn't recognize her. With that being said, my best performance, I'm gonna actually give mine to none other than the former star of one of my favorite TV shows, Ozark, none other than Julia Garner. I'm a big fan of hers. I think she killed it in Fantastic Four as well, playing the Silver Surfer. Her her demeanor in this movie sells it so well because she does have an air of suspicion around her at the beginning. You're not took she's kind of mousy and meek, and you're not totally sold that she didn't have something to do with the disappearance of these kids early on. But then as the movie unravels, and she's a part of most of the chapters of the stories in some way, shape, or form. And you do realize by the end, she actually was just a caring person. You mentioned the really weird, dumb decisions she makes, but you realize that actually is her character. As you said, that is an improvement from Barbarian, which is one of my big issues with Barbarian, was the decisions a whip smart woman of the 2020s doesn't do the dumb shit that Georgina Campbell's character would do.
Yeah.
The reason why it works in this one is because Julia Garner's character has zero boundaries. She does, and she is notoriously nosy and like gets into people's business she should not get into. But I love the way she portrayed that character. It works so well, and ultimately she's a hero. And I love that about the character. But she's not the hero. She is a hero of this story, and I just love the way they use her in this movie, and she's incredible. She can do anything, and I think she's great in this movie.
It's a fantastically well written character, and then it's incredibly well performed. I bought into what she was selling. I really did. Like I bought it. I know a teacher very intimately. I know a teacher very well who teaches kids about the age that she teaches. And so with the teacher side of her made a lot of sense to me. The messy other side of her that doesn't go to school every day, that side was interesting and nuanced. This is my favorite role that she's done. She was also my favorite part of Ozarks. I don't like Ozarks as a movie or as a show, but that's a completely different topic. But I loved her character in that, and even this to me felt very different and very very layered. I thought she absolutely knocked this one out of the park.
Yeah, I agree, and I actually really did like Ozark. That was a great show.
Yeah.
Patrick, let's move on to MVP. Our Ken Foray Banana Hammock MVP award given out after great character actor Ken Foray from the movie From Beyond, where he jumped down a flight of stairs and into a basement to kill a creature wearing nothing more than a thong bikini, which is actually what Patrick's wearing right now. If you don't watch YouTube, you really
It's hot over here. You better keep it up.
yeah, so that is our MVP. If that's not an MVP performance, I don't know what is. So, Patrick, when it comes to the MVP of weapons, who gets your MVP?
My MVP goes to Josh Brolin, who played Archer. I think this movie really needed this character. There needed to be a parent perspective because 17 missing kids, it's got to affect a parent and how it affects it, and also how his character unfolds. When you first meet him, he seems irate. He seems it's very I think he's the one who put Witch on her car. It was either her or Gladys, him or
It was him.
Gladys.
It was him. It was him. It was
It
him.
it was him. Yeah, yeah. Like he has a problem. He's not just a guy looking for his son. He's a bit unhinged. He's not well. And most of the people in his life are pretty disappointed with him based on his decision making at this time. But as the movie unfolds and as new shit has come to light, man, he changes course. He
He
starts to
kidnapped. He
understand.
kidnapped him. He kidnapped himself, man. Sorry, I had to say.
Yeah, yeah. I
You
knew
threw
you'd
out a
like
big.
that
You threw
little
out a
quote.
big Lebowski line. I had to throw out that. I'm sorry. I had to do it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I knew you'd like that. But I like that he didn't just go all one note. He is and it's true I think of both of these main characters that they are very layered and very interesting and they're not all one thing. And I think I just think this movie really needed it. I just wanted more of it, but I think it needed it and Josh delivered it.
Can I? And I think what you said there, and I'm just rewording it in my own way of saying this. I think he went from concern, and that's in the 30 days we're not spending with him, where he's just desperately looking for his child. And after 30 days, as sadly goes, like, nobody really ever shows up after 30 days. They tell you that. Like, if a kid goes missing more than like 48 hours, pretty good chance you're probably never going to see that person again. That's the sad reality of missing persons. But it feels like Archer went from tragic, like I lost my son, I need to find him, to somebody has to pay. And that's where
Yeah.
he's at when you meet him. And he's like, somebody's going to pay. Like, I still want my kid back, but somebody's going to pay for this. And Miss Gandy kind of becomes the target of his aggression, at least for part of the movie. So for me, I know you're thinking I'm going to go Zach Kreger, aren't you? You think I'm going to go Zach Kreger? I
I
can
mean,
tell
that's
you.
a safe pick, I would say.
It's not Zach Kreger. My
Mhm.
MVP is none other than Carrie Christopher, the little boy who played Alex.
Ah,
We've said this many times, sadly, a kid actor can make or break a movie.
yes.
We don't like to bag on children actors because it's just kind of cruel. They're kids. You're not supposed to be Leonardo DiCaprio or Daniel Day-Lewis at 9 years old. You
I
just
prefer that you
can't.
not be. It's
Yeah,
annoying.
yeah. It would be a lot. This kid killed it. Alex
Yeah.
was such a sympathetic little boy, and you have kids right around his age. I'm sure you probably saw a little bit of your sons in Alex, just because, like you just said, like you can't imagine what it would be like for one of your kids to be gone. This kid was so sweet and caring, but the way he actually portrayed it in this movie works. Like, I don't know that you could have put another kid in this role. That Carrie Christopher killed it with this. Like, from his dialogue to his mannerisms to the moments he had to carry, like just carrying bags of groceries back to his house, and the concerned look on his face, the terrified look in his face of knowing his parents are being tormented by his evil witch of an aunt. This kid absolutely blew me out of the water, and I'm being honest when I say this. Like, in any other universe, he would have just got best performance. But the reason
Yeah.
why he gets MVP is because if this is another kid, we're having the
Mhm.
other conversation, the uncomfortable conversation where we don't want to be cruel, but we're like,
Yeah.
probably should have kept looking. This kid nailed it. And as you said, Alex was one of your favorite parts. Like, Alex's story was one. Another kid actor may not have pulled that off. He killed it.
This only galvanizes my argument, Damon. He was incredibly good at what he was doing, which is being a kid.
Yeah.
And a vulnerable kid and a kid that was damaged and hurt on many levels and for many reasons. That takes a lot of work to be convincing on screen, and he knocked it out of the park. And as you heard earlier, all I wanted was more of that, and he deserved it. He was doing a great job.
Yeah, he really did. Let's move on to our next category and let's talk about best gore. Now, this is a weird movie because there's not a lot of gore, but when there is gore, there's
Holy
fucking
shit!
gore. they're like no gore, no gore. Here's all the gore. So Patrick, when it comes to weapons, what gets your best gore?
I think you knew what I was gonna. I bet you were sitting in that theater going, "I know what Patrick's gonna write down. Let's rip Gladys apart." And it just it conjures like kind of the classic imagery of like Dawn of the Dead, when the guy's getting like pulled through and being ripped apart by all the zombies and stuff like that. Um, that scene is just so fucking awesome. Like to watch these kids just like literally just tear her limb from limb, rip the skin off of her face, rip her head off. We cheered. I mean, the crowd cheered. The crowd audibly cheered at this. It was such a satisfying moment, and it is brutal. I mean, they rip her to smithereens, Damon. She turns into nothing but unprocessed lunch meat.
Can I say why that wasn't my best score?
Oh, please.
There's one moment that takes me out of it. And it happens so often in movies. And I know this is a practical effect, and I'm a practical effect guy. But there's one moment where they're ripping apart her arm, and her skin is like elastic.
Yeah.
It looks like a rubber band being pulled apart, and I know that's prosthetics. Now, I'm not a doctor, but I have skin and I've had cuts on skin and I've had tattoos. I'm pretty sure your skin is not elastic to where it looks like you're pulling a rubber band when you pull it off. Like it gets pulled off in shreds because your muscles and your skin are layers. It always takes me out when I see an effect when you see it like stretching like a rubber band and it pops. I'm like, that's not like, I'm not saying it wouldn't be gross, but I always notice that in some horror films when they make it look like the skin is rubber. And I'm
Yeah.
like, it's not rubber. And so I saw that in one moment. I was like, oh man, like you did it. You had the elastic skin. I don't like that. But you're right. That is actually the best score. But the one I went with, which is gnarly, and my theater reacted hard. Now, I'm not saying this is the best. I'm saying my theater reacted and it made it better.
I know where you're
When
going.
when Miss Gandy's being attacked by Paul, she's desperately trying to fight him off, and she grabs a cheese grater. Not the cheese grater from Evil Dead Rise, like
Nope.
just the slicer, the cheese slicer.
Yeah.
And she takes it on his face and she starts pulling down layers of skin. But because he's zombified, he can't feel it. He's just on a mission to kill her. But watching her slowly drag the cheese grater down his face and just watching peels of skin come off, I'm like, oh man, my whole theater was like, oh, oh.
Yeah. There
I
was a
was like,
lot
that
of
was
oh.
it was really, and it was the first slice she takes, she like digs in and just like drags
Yeah.
down. It's really gnarly.
Yeah. That drew a big reaction in my crowd. It was definitely it's fun. It was also kind of funny. Like
It
it's kind of
was.
it's a funnier
Yeah,
moment.
it was good. Let's go on to our next category, and that is best scare. I kind of skipped over categories. I apologize. I flip flopped our categories.
That's fine.
Best scare in weapons.
My best scare is that's not Matthew. Asher is having Archer, excuse me, he's having a nightmare as he does about Matthew and trying to find Matthew, and he's constantly searching for him. It's actually a pretty cool sequence. It's not quite dreamlike, but it at least like it has a lot of dream logic where he's constantly in different places, constantly trying to look for him and can't really find him, always finding him under stuff and can't really see him. I kind of like that. And eventually he gets to the point where he's back in the home, back in Matthew's bed or standing in front of Matthew's bed, and it looks like Matthew's under the sheets, and you're like, okay, well, what's coming? And then he lifts that blanket up, and boy, that ain't Matthew. It's something, and it seems like a facsimile, if I'm not mistaken, of Gladys.
Yeah,
It's kind of what it was. It looked like
yeah,
a crazier, even crazier version of Gladys.
yeah. It looked like that, and that also provides one of the best laughs of the movie because he wakes up and he goes, "What the fuck?" And my entire
Yeah,
theater just burst out laughing. It was a great like juxtapose of that scene of like him being scared and then waking up and going, "What the fuck?" It was great.
yeah.
Um, that was probably the best one, but I'll go the other side, which is another dream sequence, which is when Julia Garner's having her dream sequence, kind of the same thing, and she's laying in bed. Which, by the way, she lives in her own house by herself. Why are you sleeping with the bedroom door open? What kind of psycho are you? You
Because
always close the,
Zach Kreger's directing. That's why.
you always close the bedroom door. I don't care who you are. And she's kind of living like hearing noises and creaks and cracks and always paranoid something's outside. She looks up at her ceiling and there's the weird freaky sort of Gladys creature thing on the ceiling for 2 seconds, and it's just a good jump scare. But I mean, I think if I'm being honest, I think that entire final sequence with Alex is honestly the scariest part because you feel for this fucking poor kid, man. Like watching his
Yeah.
parents stab themselves in the face with a
Dreadful.
fork is just like, oh my god, it's like nightmare inducing. So like that's truthfully the scariest scene, probably the fork scene with the parents when they're just like
Yeah.
jabbing themselves in the fucking face, and Alex is watching his parents just like kill themselves more or less. It's pretty fucking disturbing.
Yeah, it's super dreadful. That whole sequence is pretty dreadful. Your heart's breaking for him, and it's also just hard to watch.
Yeah. Next category, Patrick. Can we survive this horror film? Now, I'm going to put you in a situation for this one, Patrick, because not to make it a very depressing, dour moment here, but you have kids. I
Hmm.
don't. So I guess I'm Miss Gandy. And technically, I do have an English literature degree, and I could have been a teacher. You want to know why I didn't become a teacher? A, because, they don't get paid very much, they don't get treated great, but also B, I fucking hate children. So I knew I could never be that I would be a casualty in like the first kid that spoke up, I'd fucking lose my mind. That'd be the end of me being a teacher. So technically, I'm Mr. Martin. I would be Miss Gandy in this situation because she's single, doesn't have kids. I'm not single, but I don't have kids, and you do have kids, so you're kind of Archer. So do we make it out of this movie? Do what Gandy and Archer do?
I don't know, Damon. It's really hard to go. I feel like I've got a pretty good hold on witchcraft. Don't ask me why. But I feel like I'd be a little more witchcraft savvy. I definitely would be better at subduing Marcus. Like I know that was the part that kind of drove me nuts, and I bet it drove you nuts too, as somebody with a combat sports background. You were like, no, that's not how you. Why did you try to get him like that? You should have got him this way. Anyway, I digress. Like there's certain things in the movie where I'm like, I probably would have done a little better than Archer here or there.
And Josh Brolin is a big MMA fan. I know he trains. Like he's like an avid
I
guy. Like,
probably, I bet him and Zach Kreger argued about that scene. I
yeah.
promise you, because Josh Brolin's not a guy who is afraid to speak up. But I think I would overall, I think I would be very, very savvy in this movie. So I think I have a good chance of surviving.
I think I survive mostly because I don't invade spaces like Miss Gandy does. Like
You'd survive because you just don't give a shit. You'd be like, the kids are gone. Guess I'll go do something else with my wife. I'm on paid leave. I'll just do something else.
I don't want to sound uncaring, and I don't want to turn off our audience. But like, what kind of a fucking person is this? But Patrick, you know me well. You nailed it. I would be like, oh, they're missing. Cool. What's going on? What's for dinner tonight? So yeah, like I know I would not put myself in the situations that Miss Gandy does, where she's like going to the kid's house
Yeah.
and more or less stalking him. And to her point, she is careful. It's like she's caring for him. She's not like
Yeah.
creepy.
She's not being weird. Yeah.
She genuinely cares for this kid, which, judging by what actually happens at his house, it's goddamn good she did, and
Oh
these other
yeah.
people did too. But yeah, like I would not be in that situation. Like I'd be like, oh, kids are missing. Cool. I'm off the hook. Cool. I'm gonna go on vacation. You don't need me right now. I'm gonna go on vacation. I'll be on a beach somewhere. So yeah, like I make it because I don't. Just not my thing. I'm not gonna be the one who's gonna be stuck in that situation. So that's pretty much it. So
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Don't worry about me, guys.
yeah. So your camera died. Did you notice that?
I did. I'm trying to get it to work back, but that's all right. We still got audio. Sorry, folks.
We
I,
do.
I
We
did
do.
lose
We
my
do.
camera.
We're almost done here. Next category: remake, sequel, or leave it alone. This might actually be the easiest category of the whole night, Patrick. And I'm going to go first here. One of the things was love it or hate it, and you mentioned this even with Barbarian. It is original, and we do love a good original story. And sometimes, like, you can go too far with an original story where they do end up making sequels. I just brought this up to our buddy Justin Slasher Talk. He was talking about sequels that did not pay off after the original, and I brought up
Yeah.
a movie I genuinely liked, Happy Death Day. Christopher Landon, really fun Groundhog Day slasher movie where it's like the woman keeps reliving the same day of her death. It's a really fun, like, horror comedy, really. Then they made a sequel, and it was awful. They just tried way too hard to duplicate what they did in this first movie, but then they added in like a sci-fi element, which was remarkably dumb. and it ruined it. I was like, I don't need that. Let me just ignore that one exists. So my point being, leave it alone. This doesn't need a sequel. It doesn't need to continue the story. We don't need Gladys's cousin to show up. Just it's one story.
Yeah.
Be done with it.
Yeah, in any normal situation, Damon, I tell you, just leave it alone. It's fine the way it is, but I got big gripes with this movie. So I am asking for a remake. And I'm asking for a remake the way I want it, Damon, because well, I'm making the rules up here. Why not? So I'm just gonna say I want the Justine, the Archer, the Alex, and the Gladys story. I want that story, and it's in there. It's good. Build on it. Build on it, and make a movie that might be undeniably one of the best movies to the year. And now it's just I'm debating whether it's going to make the top 10 or not. There's a lot to like here, and it's bogged down by things that it doesn't need. And so ultimately, I got to go remake.
I understand. Like I said, the things that you're bumping up against are the things that didn't bother me as much. But you're admitting there's elements of good here. There's good elements.
Yeah, there's stuff I really want here, and I just want more of that and less of Paul. I don't need to know about Paul's penis situations.
We are all done with Alden Eidenreich. Like, dude, I love you. You're good. You're a good actor, but we don't need much else. Last category, Patrick, is it scary? Now, it's funny you mentioned this is more of a thriller than it is. Although, when you get the witch aspect, it's
sure, yes. Once you get to the third act.
You're actually, I think you're the one who, I had not seen it. You had the movie Prisoners.
Oh, yeah. Prisoners is great.
Like, I got a little Prisoners vibes in the first half of this movie, and then it went supernatural in the second half. But I think it is scary to a certain extent. Like, there's a couple good jump scares. It's creepy, and I think your key every single time is dread. And when you see what Alex is going through in that last segment, which is what you said is probably your favorite, it's fucking dreadful. So it is scary in that regard. Is it the scariest movie of the year? No, it's not that. But there's dread, and there are some scares. So I would argue this is a scary movie.
There's thrills, there's scares, and there's tension, and there's lots of dread. It's all there. It's not all there at the same time. It's not the most even and balanced movie. It's got some pacing issues, especially in the middle. But those things are there. But believe me, my audience was reacting where they needed to react. Some people weren't ready for how hard it went when it went hard. And when it decided to give us this fantastic sequence of a bunch of little kids chasing down a witch, I think everybody in the audience was fully satisfied with how that went down. Like, this movie satisfies you on those levels. So is it scary? Yes, Damon, it is. It contains a lot of what you need to make a proper scary movie.
100%. All right, Weapons is in theaters right now. As we said, it's going to end up being one of the more talked about horror films of the year. Everyone's been kind of waiting for this one, so it is in theaters right now. Check it out. If you want to listen to this episode early, and I assume you're listening to this, so you already are listening to it early, or you're listening to it when we actually drop the episode, patreon.com/Rewind of Living Dead. We're recording this late Thursday night. Within an hour, it is going to be up on our Patreon. So if you want it early, if you want to check it out, even before you can listen to the non-spoiler section, before we get to the spoiler section, you just want to know what we think about the movie before you go see it, Patreon gives you every advantage of doing that, because most people aren't going to see this till Friday or Saturday. So Patreon gives you the chance to listen to this now and then go see the movie, come back and see what we think in the spoiler section. So patreon.com/Rewind of Living Dead. And you can still get, of course, this podcast for free on all the other podcast networks, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, over at our website, rewindoflivingdead.com. And, of course, our YouTube channel. Just search Rewind of Living Dead. You'll find us over there. If you got questions, comments, movies you'd like us to review, your thoughts on Barbarian and or Weapons, hit us up on email anytime, rotlivingdead@gmail.com. That's rotlivingdead@gmail.com. Or you can find us on social media. We are at all the major platforms, Twitter/X, Facebook, and Instagram. Once again, just search Rewind of the Living Dead and you will find us over there. And you can also find us on our own personal social media channels. I am at Damon Martin, and you are?
At Director Patrick.
And as always, we want to say a big thank you to everyone that tunes in the show. We'll be back next week with another edition of Rewind of the Living Dead. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you then.
Peace.